Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Pasterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's up, everyone? It is a huge game day edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk coming at you. Playoff rematch. Revenge game? Maybe. We'll see. We'll ask Coach Scott Arniel in a moment and hear what he has to say on that. But I can tell you, Winnipeg Jet fans are looking in for a chance to see the 12-1 Jets get a crack at the Colorado Avalanche. Teams were on the ice for the morning skates a little earlier. Can't tell you that Cale Makar was out there for the Avalanche. He'll be a game-time decision, but I think we should all expect the most lethal and dangerous defenseman in the National Hockey League, not named Neil Pionk, to be in the lineup tonight. Cale Makar likely to go for the Colorado Avalanche, which is a big boost for a Colorado team that has been decimated by injuries, which has played into a very subpar start to the season by Avalanche standards. 7 o'clock puck drop tonight, going to be a good one. We are going to hear from Scott Arniel shortly, as well as Winnipeg Jets captain Adam Lowry. We'll talk about it coming up with Brandon Rewucki, Scott Billeck of the Winnipeg Sun as well. A little later on, Justin Dunk with some CFL playoff talk as we continue counting down to Bombers Riders on Saturday at Princess Auto Stadium. And tonight is the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame induction ceremony. And going to be catching up with one of tonight's inductees, Dr. Sandra Kirby from the University of Winnipeg, the Order of Canada recipient, member of the Canadian Sports Hall of Fame, about all of her trailblazing work for safe sport and inclusion. So we'll have that for you as well, and congratulations to all of the individuals going into the hall tonight down at the Victoria Inn ceremonies. Listen, just before we get into the program, welcome to everybody with us in chat. I promised earlier this week that we were going to do something special for this Super Saturday doubleheader. And we want to bring one of Winnipeg sports fans out, not just to one game, but to both games on Saturday. 2 o'clock, it's the Jets and Dallas Stars. 5:30, it's the Bombers and Riders. And courtesy of our great sponsors at Princess Auto, I have, for some rabid Winnipeg fan, 2 club seats down in the Ticketmaster Lounge area for the game at 2 p.m. and 2 lower bowl seats for the West Final. Now, what you're going to want to do to enter, and you've got one day to do this, is go to our social media feeds, either our X account at Sports Talk WPG or our Instagram. You will see the post. I kind of lay it out, but all you need to do, gang, is get a picture of yourself in Jets gear or Bomber gear, or frankly, considering it's a doubleheader, I would suggest if you can pull off both, do that, and then post it or respond to our tweet with the picture, hashtag Super Saturday, and tag us at Sports Talk Winnipeg, at Sports Talk WPG. And feel free to mention in that post how fired up you are for both the Jets and the Bombers on Saturday. We'll announce the winner tomorrow on the program. So you've basically got 24 hours to put together your best photo and then get ready for a marathon with both of our teams going at it in massive games. It's kind of great that we've got this huge game tonight with the Jets and the Avs, so we don't spend all our time obsessing about what's coming up on Saturday. We'll do that tomorrow. Tonight, it's about the Jets Avs, but again, right now, would love to have you join at the Jet game at 2, the Bomber game at 5:30. Hit their socials right now. Picture, Jets, Bomber gear, one, either or. But as I said, it's probably better if you have both on. We'll post the winning picture and announce the winner tomorrow. And we'll look forward to seeing you at the game. By the way, just on that note, I know there's a lot of people planning on doing the double dip. I've reached out to one of our friends in the mayor's office, and I'm hoping that tomorrow we'll have a very quick kind of 3-5-minute interview with someone from Winnipeg Transit that will give us all the lowdown on what the easiest and fastest way to get to the rink. I've told you before, I pretty much don't ever drive to the games at Princess Auto Stadium anymore. The rapid transit is so quick and so convenient, pulling you right up to the stadium. That's my plan for it, but usually we'll catch it at Osborne or somewhere else. We'll kind of just get details on when buses will be leaving downtown, when you're going to want to get on there, and where you can get them close to Canada Life Center. So pop by tomorrow on the program. We'll put that out and maybe fire out something on social media as well, but planning on doing that. So there's your task for the next 24 hours. Get that good pick. Join me, and would love to see you join for what is going to be a hell of a fun Saturday that we've been anticipating for a long time. Of course, that program brought to you by our great sponsors at Princess Auto. Also want to thank Coolbet Canada. Of course, Garage Living Winnipeg, new edition of CFL 110 is up all over this weekend in the Canadian Football League. We dropped that on the YouTube channel yesterday with myself and Jeff Hamilton. Rolly's Transfer, Manitoba Battery, Canadian Club, Wallace & Wallace, the Winnipeg Jets, fansfirst.ca, F Apparel, Little Brown Jug, Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, and of course we'll get to a Why Not question of the day for our friends at Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray as well. All right, go time. Michael Remis, get in here. What's up? How you doing?
I'm ready tonight, Huss. We kind of kept saying, oh, the Jets are playing the Avalanche, but now that it's here, I started thinking, oh, is this a revenge game? The Avalanche really just beat up on the Jets in the playoffs, gave everyone, PTSD all summer.
Oh, look at our chat all week. The team's 12-1, and that's all some people want to talk about.
Still, you kind of undid a lot of the greatness of last season. Has a historic one for the Winnipeg Jets, and I think it's just left a really bad taste in the mouth of everyone, thinking of how Colorado came in here last year and made the Jets look like nothing. Connor Hellebuyck had a Vezina season, and I don't even want to bring up his numbers because your head will explode. And I don't think it was him. I think the team fell apart. The defense wasn't there. They're allowing, tape to tape, cross ice passes, getting Hellebuyck moving, and they're able to enter the zone freely with speed all the time. It was a nightmare. Nightmare series, Huss, and I think the Jets have certainly addressed, what went wrong and vowed to come back better. And hey, you can't argue they have. They're at 12-1, but I was wondering, you and I were talking before, what are the players going to say? Is this a big revenge game, or how are they going to play this one?
Well, we'll see what they say. What matters more is exactly to your point of how they play tonight. And God knows, I do not want to relitigate the playoffs anymore. We have spent a lot of time talking about that. It is in the past. What you can only hope, and I think evidence so far, is that the Winnipeg Jets spent a lot of time and did a lot of soul searching over the summer, and acknowledged the fact that in that series, they weren't even close to good enough. And I would argue, that they played maybe 4 of their worst games of the entire season, which was very good, in games 2 through 5. And game 1 was a bit of a, listen, it was 7-6. It was a crazy game. It was fun to see them score all those goals, but that was certainly no clinic and no path to winning in the playoffs. So listen, they know what to do. First of all, you got to get to the postseason, and you got to be ready, and you got to be better. But measuring yourself against the top teams in the division in high leverage games with major impact on the standings is where you start before you get to that point. And tonight is that first chance to see what the Avalanche have and what the Jets can do against a team that certainly skated circles around them for the better part of that first round series. There's nobody that looks at what the Jets have done so far this year and I don't think is impressed with the body of work they put together through 13 games. But we also knew that the stakes were raising and the opposition was going to increase as we got into November. And listen, full marks to the Jets for the win against Tampa, one of the best of the season. Great defensive performance last Tuesday against Utah. Now it's time to show what you can do against a team that has been, for the last number of years, one of the measuring sticks, not just in the Central Division, but the league, and comes in with a couple of the hottest players on the planet in Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar, who in a lot of ways has sort of put this team on their backs, despite the record right now. If those guys weren't there, this team might be down with the San Jose Sharks because so many of their regulars are out. I mean, as far as what the lineup looks right now, just before we get to the coach, let's take a look at this, Remis. I mean, you just want to bring them up. Nathan McKinnon in the middle with Mikko Rantanen, a superstar in his own right, and Arturi Lekkonen's back. That is nice. He missed a little bit of time earlier this season, and he, of course, was a pain in the ass for the Jets in that series. Scored some big goals. I mean, the guy that was the real Jet killer, Valery Nichushkin, practicing with the team, but not in the lineup as of yet tonight. Line number 2 is Casey Middlestat, along with Kiviranta and Logan O'Connor. Parker Kelly in the middle with Nikolai Kovalenko and your guy, Remis, Ivan. And then, I mean, the fourth line, and it's been a whole bunch of guys that, frankly, most of us haven't heard of before. Chris Wagner in the middle of TJ Tynan and Nikita Prishkapov. This is going to be a game where the focus is almost entirely on that top 9 and pretty much top 6. Now, defense pairings, assuming Cale Makar is ready to go, he'll be there alongside Devon Toews, both potential members of Canada's Four Nations team. Cale Makar, an absolute lock. I'd say it's likely that Toews is there as well. A second pairing of Sam Girard and Josh Manson, and then Calvin DeHaan and Sam Malinsky. And one thing that has been a disaster for Colorado this year, and we kind of thought that it might be in the playoffs, and it was for one game, and then it wasn't, is goaltending. Alexander Georgiev getting the start tonight. And Reem, as we talked about yesterday, he has had some very, very ugly numbers so far this year. Georgiev on the season, 1-4 with a .462 goals against average and a save percentage of .822. And with the way the Jets have been scoring goals this year, if Georgiev doesn't step up and play much better, that's going to be a bad spot for Colorado because we know the guy that's in the net on the other side. And as I say, we'll hear whether this is a get-him-back game or revenge game, whatever you want to call it. I guarantee Connor Hellebuck is going to be dead focused on getting a win tonight and playing his best hockey considering what happened last year.
Yeah, Georgiev hasn't played since October 28, on his way to a loss to the Blackhawks. So the Jets, I mean, they're a tough opponent. Leading the league in offense, the Winnipeg Jets with 4.77 goals per game. Absolutely incredible what we're seeing from them so far. And we do remember game 1 where he lived up to the nickname Georgiev, but he's had some time off. You know, they've gone with former Jets goalie Capo Kakinen. Like you wouldn't be able to use him in Puckdoku. He never played a game for the Jets. Sorry, so they did sign him as a free agent and he was placed on waivers. But they got Kapanen,
Annanen's been getting all the wins for them this year. So I thought maybe we should do a tribute video for Capo Kakinen for his time in Winnipeg. And it would just be like those 6 goals he let in that one preseason game on a repeat. Listen, it's going to be Georgiev tonight. And listen, he's got a lot to prove right now because the goaltending hasn't been there. And Annunen, I mean, for his part, Annunen has some better numbers, Reem. He's 5-2 on the season. He's got a .264 goals against. Still has a save percentage under .900, which is not kind of what you expect from NHL goaltending. But I would suggest, and I mean, maybe they're playing Georgiev in this game knowing that it is a big game for the team, knowing that he's important. They have to get him going and hoping that he can kind of summon some of the good feelings that he had the last time he was in this building back in April.
Yeah, I mean, I think he wasn't great in that first game and then certainly was able to sort it out and, you know, not every shot was going in. So I'm curious what we're going to see tonight. Will it be a repeat of game 1 or will it be something like some of the other games? And the Avalanche, they've battled so many injuries this year. Landeskog, they thought maybe he would be back. He just had a setback, so not really sure what his future. Jonathan Drouin is currently out. Nichushkin started skating, and we remember, you know, his dominant performance against the Jets in the playoffs. But he is, you know, on his way to return. Lekkonen just came back, had a nice impact in that last game. Ross Colton, he got injured. He's out. they've had guys injured, and they had another scare with Cale Makar leaving the game. So game time decision is what Bednar said, and we'll wait and see. But that's a big game time decision. He did skate with them, wore the regular jersey, seemed to be moving okay. I'm not sure what maybe is it mind games. Is there something they're watching out for that'll come up before?
Let's assume that he's in the game. They'll
probably,
prepare for him, and if he's not there, they'll be more than happy to see who they throw in instead of Cale Makar. The two guys that are out that you wouldn't maybe normally think, oh, that's a big loss to the lineup, it's Miles Wood and Ross Colton. Both of those guys were very impactful. And that's why there's so many angles to this game. I mean, obviously, you know that when you play Colorado, you got to deal with McKinnon and Rantanen and Makar. But again, just thinking back to that series, I mean, there was the second line that was killing them with Nichushkin. And then guys like Wood and Colton were getting into it. And, they were living in the paint. Connor Hellebuck couldn't see anything. I mean, just so many things went wrong that this is a great opportunity for the Jets and their depth. Every one of their lines, every one of their defense pairings step up and play a much better game and show that they're ready to kind of elevate to the level of competition coming up tonight. One thing on both sides that I think is going to be real impactful, Remis, and these individuals better get ready, is the penalty killing units. Because tonight is a matchup of the top two power plays in the National Hockey League, and to be honest, it's really not close. The Winnipeg Jets running at a 44.4% clip, and the Avalanche not that far behind at 37%. Clearly the two best power plays in the league. When penalties are called, the possibility of the puck going in the net is, I think, going to increase. And I would say that on both sides, the coaching staffs and those penalty killing units probably spending a little bit more time looking at video and getting ready for tonight, in addition to the goaltenders, because these power play, the results speak for themselves on what both teams have done so far this year with the man advantage.
Yeah, and you just mentioned the depth. It was kind of, funny. Last year, heading into the playoffs, we talked about how the Avalanche, weren't that deep. They were one line, and it was the depth. Nichushkin, Mittelstadt, who had the big series for the Jets. Of course, McKinnon did what he does to just about every team as well. And you look at their roster, they're basically missing the second line right now with Colton, Nichushkin, and Drouin out, and also Miles Wood as well. You could also throw in, Landeskog, who's been out an extended time. But yeah, the power play, we saw it last year. You're going to see it tonight. It's very, very deadly with Makar and McKinnon, the speed entering the zone, how they pass it around. You have Mikko Rantanen, he's big in front. So these guys can score it. But the Jets, hey, their power play, as you said, better than Colorado's this year. And they're certainly on a heater. Kyle Connor, he didn't get a point last game, Huss, but he was looking, he was showing off the hands there. He's dangling just about a player every time he got the puck. He was really feeling it. Didn't get the point to tie the record for season opening point streak by a U.S.-born player. I got it all in there. So we'll see if he gets back on there tonight. So yes, power play, special teams will be huge in this one.
Hey, I got to give a shout out to Tico J. Hey, all watching from Alberta. It's a thing of beauty when our Jets are on duty. Thanks, WST, for bringing us everything Jets. We all truly appreciate your hard work. Go, Jets, go. Right on, Tico J. Thank you very much for doing that. And then we don't need to have all the Alberta slander, especially when Tico J is bringing us such warm wishes from the province of Alberta right now. There's still a lot of Jet fans out there in Winnipeg, expats. All right, let's hear from the coach. I was really interested to hear how Arniel would speak the morning of the game. You didn't have to dive in too much to his post-game comments coming out of the Utah game to kind of see that point where he wasn't asked. He offered up. We know who's coming in for these next two games. Big Central Division battles. Didn't reference the playoffs, but you can't talk about Winnipeg and Colorado, first matchup of the season, without talking about what happened back in April. But to the coach, it's business as usual. It's game 14 of the regular season. This is another game, not a revenge game. Here's Arnie.
Another game. New season. He really, and we're not ducking any of that stuff. We've talked enough about what happened last spring. This is all about what happens tonight. You know, we had to get ready for a big divisional week. We had Utah. We had to prepare for them, how they play. We know what Colorado does. We know what they're good at. And now it's a case of us making sure that, you know, we reset off the last game, and there's some things that we got to do tonight that are going to help us have success. And, you know, they're still a really good team. Their analytics are still real high in all their categories. Maybe their standings don't show it, but they're still an elite team in our division.
All right, so there's Arnie, and I will admit, I love the way that he's handling it. He's not going in and make this big statement. Yes, we're going to get them for what they did to us last year. I mean, there's nothing you can do about last year. But the way Remis that he mentioned, we've talked about that enough. I mean, they haven't just brushed it under. They haven't ignored it. They've handled it and taken it straight on. And I think it's made them the committed team that we've seen so far this year. So I don't entirely buy that it's just any other game, but I understand why the coach would speak that way, you know, after the morning skate, hours before the game.
I kind of agree with what he's saying. They've talked about it enough, what happened last year. They've addressed it. They've moved on. It is a new season. I do think it's there in the back of your mind, this first round series from last season, but it's a new season now. They're 12-1. They're feeling good. They just want to stick to their game. They're not focused on what the opponent is doing. Well, you kind of are to counter them, but they're just focused on playing Winnipeg Jets hockey here. And, you know, whoever the opponent is, that's who it is that day. The fact that it's, you know, Colorado and smoked them in the playoffs, that was in the past. They seem to have addressed, you know, the concerns that they had, and they're going to talk about the changes that they made. And, you know, they've moved forward and having quite a successful season of their own so far here, 1 month in.
Well, speaking of those changes, I mean, let's get number 3 up here. And this is Arnie on, you know, changes to, you know, the way that they've played, what they're looking to do, what they need to do better after, you know, what happened in games 2 through 5 last April against the Avalanche in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
I don't think I'm going to zoom too much in on that. I'm going to say more of how our depth and how we're getting our contributions throughout the lineup. I think that, you know, we challenge this group, everybody be 10% better, and, you know, we've gotten that from everybody. Everybody's contributed. We've won in different ways throughout the season so far, and, you know, it's come from all 4 lines in our defense and even our goaltending. So, you know, right now we're playing our game, which is our, you know, our structure game, and we're, you know, the results are coming from us playing that hard game that we need to play each and every night.
How do you measure 10%? Because that's not necessarily production, is it?
We have our ways. We have our ways. We do. We look at things. We have specific things that maybe it's a line at what they need to do, individuals what they need to do, defensemen, whether it's breakouts, different things. And, you know, so we have areas that we kind of keep eye on, and it's not hard to, you know, kind of get the guys to, they recognize that, you know, there's every night it's a challenge, or you're out against where the guy you line up against. It's you winning your battles every night, you winning your situations, and so far we like what we've seen. We got to continue to do that.
All right, so there's Scott Arniel. Let's see if we can get a little bit more out of the captain today. Adam Lowry spoke to the media after today's morning skate, and here's Lowry on shot at the Avs for the first time this season.
Divisional games are super important. I think we're disappointed with the result last year and, you know, how that series went, but, you know, I think we've kind of turned the page and, you know, tried to take the lessons from last year and, you know, implement them in training camp and implement them kind of in our start and our team structure and, you know, things like that. I think, you know, obviously their team looks a little different than what they did last year in the playoffs, but we know they got a lot of speed. They're great on the forecheck. They got a couple of big guys on the back end that can really move the puck and are dangerous offensively. So, you know, I think the importance of this game, you know, and the importance of moving forward is we trust our structure. You know, I think to date it's done a great job of getting us where we are, and you know, we can kind of play any style of game. I think, you know, but we do, or we're at our best when we're, you know, really defensively sound. We're not really allowing a lot of rush chances. We're breaking the puck out cleanly, and, you know, the special teams have been really good for us to start the year. And, that was a big story in the series last year. So, there's, it's not kind of a revenge game. It's, we've kind of had to move past that, a disappointing result, but, we're just focused on how we can come to the rink, put our best foot forward and, put ourselves in a good spot to be in the playoffs and, hopefully go on a run, this year, as opposed to just keep looking back.
All right, so there's the captain. Here's a little bit more from Lowry, and this is kind of more on John Liu's question on changes they've made after a disappointing quick exit against this team last spring.
Well, I think special teams has been critical. Obviously, the power play's been unbelievable to start. They're going at an incredible rate and scoring big goals. Get the game winner last game in a really tightly checking, tightly contested game. Penalty kill, is still a work in progress, but I think we've made some strides there. We're a little more aggressive. I think not a lot has changed 5-on-5. I think it's just more having that conviction in our 5-on-5 structure, and when things aren't going our way, as opposed to getting loose and turning it into a transition game, to kind of doubling down and what we're good at and managing the puck, and if the chances are there, you take them, but kind of limiting those turnovers. Last year, Colorado really fed off their forecheck and transition, so. They've got a lot of speed. They got a lot of D that can jump up in the play and make it 4-man attack. So it's important that we do that tonight.
All right. Well, there's a little bit more on Adam Lowry on facing the Colorado Avalanche. Here's a little bit more on just the compete level and how that maybe is raised a little bit under Coach Arniel this year.
That's something you see in practice. It's not necessarily fighting or body checks, but winning your one-on-one battles. Making the right play, get in front of pucks, kind of doing things that, aren't necessarily the most fun, but, doing what it takes to win, I think, but, it starts well before the game, kind of our practice habits, what we do away from the rink to take care of our body. So I feel like we've done a real good job of that. And, for the most part this year, we've really liked our efforts in most games. And, it's important that continues.
All right, good stuff from the captain. Again, tonight, 7 o'clock. Saturday, 2 p.m. against the Dallas Stars. That is 90s night, or 90s day, as it were, with the game now being at 2 p.m. First 5,000 fans get that retro 90s Jets hat, which the players have been wearing in the ads lately, looking good. And don't forget, tickets are on sale now for the remaining 5 WST games. Our next game of the month is the return of the Jets after this next road trip. Tuesday, November 19th, Florida Panthers. Paul Maurice back in the building, the Stanley Cup champs. Go to winnipegjets.com/WST. Grab your tickets for that one, and hopefully you can join us for some of the other WST games of the month. Every ticket includes early access to join us in the bar in 316 a little bit before the doors open to the general public, and a beverage of your choice included with your ticket. So let's make that happen November 19th, the next WST game of the month against the Florida Panthers. All right, Brandon Rewucki's coming up right away. I mentioned we got the new CFL 110 up and ready to go for you. It is brought to you by Garage Living Winnipeg. And even though we're in November, gang, there's no slowing down for the guys at Garage Living. Lots of messy garages in and around Winnipeg that they can help with. And it's a big problem. Pat was telling me the other day he was in a 5-year-old home in a new neighborhood, and the owners had never parked in their garage because it was so full of stuff. Hey, listen, Garage Living Winnipeg can fix those problems and give you an organized garage with a place for everything. Don't miss your chance to clear the clutter, organize and beautify your garage with slat wall, polyaspartic floor coating, and made in Canada premium metal cabinetry. Definitely check out their website at garageliving.com for tons of examples of the amazing work they've done in completely renovating and refurbishing garages. And Pat Kanuga, our good friend and great supporter of WST's, there for you as well. Give him a call at 204-999-1234 to book a free in-garage consultation, or make an appointment to meet him at their showroom at 981 Main Street. Garage Living Winnipeg, garages made for living. Got to thank the fellas down at Rolly's Transfer for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Listen, Rolly's is synonymous with the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba. And if you and your family have a move coming up, make it Rolly's. Listen, they're extensive. They're family owned and operated for 60 years, and their extensive logistics business is taking them around the province and city on a daily basis, which means flexible routes, flexible rates, and flexible timing for your move. Now, if you go to Rollies.com, click out their amazing website, top right corner, you'll see request an estimate. Pop in WST in the promo code first up. Get an exclusive discount for WST listeners on moving services and moving supplies. And then just let them know when and where you're moving, what you'll be moving, and the friendly Rollies team will turn it around with a great estimate very quickly for you, and you can take as much of the stress out of the move as possible and get the white glove treatment by the best name in the moving game. For your next move, make it Rollies. Find out more, request an estimate today at rollies.com. And just before we bring in Brandon, man, the weather's going to be beautiful on the weekend, but we'll take it because we know pretty soon it won't be. And it's time to get ready for winter before winter gets you. No one likes freezing their ass off outside trying to get a car started, minus 30 temps in the dead of winter. You need to avoid that at all costs, and Manitoba Battery can help you avoid these frustrations before it's too late. You can pop into one of the 2 Manitoba Battery locations, get your battery tested for free. If it needs to be replaced, you'll save an additional $10 off the battery you need, making the best battery prices in Manitoba even better. And they've also got booster cables ready to go. 12-footers for $19.95, 25-foot cables for $59.95, and a 2,000-amp jump starter for $129.95. Keep warm, avoid frustration, and get ready for winter before winter gets you. Manitoba Battery with free home delivery on purchases over $60 and 2 convenient locations to serve you. Go to manitobabattery.com to learn more today. All right, let's bring in Brandon, the host of the Skates and Plates podcast and a great friend of ours. B, what's going on? How are you?
I'm doing good. Doing a lot better now that we're starting to chat here. So excited to get at it here.
Yeah, well, listen, there's a lot going on, and we've got this Saturday coming up that we've got to touch on. The Jets, Dallas, Bombers, Riders. But how about tonight? The coach says it's not a revenge game. Adam Lowry does. And I guess I sort of subscribe to that. I mean, like, nothing's going to change from the spring if they play well tonight. But I do think that from reading between the lines, every player in that locker room knows that this team in a lot of ways is one of the measuring sticks that they're going to have to see where they measure up to. And listen, they passed pretty much all the tests so far this year, -1 at 12-1 and on top of the league. I don't get the feeling this is just another game, though, Brandon.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But I would also agree with that the result means literally nothing. Because, we thought it was a big-time measuring stick game. What was it, game 80 last year? Something like that? Against Colorado. And the Jets blew them out of the building. And it was like, oh, my gosh, they found a way. The playoffs are going to be an enjoyable experience for us. And it didn't play out that way. So I have to imagine that I'd probably Scott Arniel trying to fan the flames a little bit there and avoid any bulletin board material appearing in the Avalanche locker room. But there's just no way that for the players there. I mean, I would imagine they were embarrassed with the way that series played out, right? And I think that has played a factor in them coming out of the gate so hot 100%. To start this year. But yeah, I if they come out and, it's another 5-1 victory for the Jets and they limit Colorado and they look the way that they have all season long, I don't think that's necessarily a testament to, they figured them out now and, we're destined to be in the West Final by the time the playoffs roll around. I am intrigued to see how they suit up and line up against Colorado and Dallas over these next 2, but I don't think it's necessarily season affirming one way or another, depending on what the result is.
No, listen, you don't win the cup in the first week of November. You don't win in the playoffs in the first week of November. But, and we heard just a little bit from Adam Lowry. I mean, they haven't ran from this. And they said they've spent a lot of time talking about why they were at the level that they were against Colorado last year. And listen, I'm going to give a lot of credit to the Avalanche. I mean, they were able to raise their game from top to bottom, and it wasn't just Makar, and it wasn't just, McKinnon or Rantanen. I mean, Nichushkin, who won't be in the lineup tonight, was the most impactful player in that series. And they were getting a lot of contributions from guys lower down the lineup. I mean, right now, you sort of turn it around, and that is what the Winnipeg Jets have been so far this year. I mean, the Winnipeg Jets have been getting contributions from 1 to 12, from 1 to 6 on the blue line, mostly Connor Hellebuck, but even Eric Comrie as well. But, for all the talk about taking care of your business going forward, like, there has to be a little bit of extra anticipation. And to be honest, a couple circles on the calendar. Like, yes, you're right. If you win this game, great. If you lose this game, hey, you're still moving on to the next one. But I think as this team tries to forge their identity, becoming a consistent team, that they can rely on what they do night in and night out, which has looked pretty darn good so far. These next two games against arguably the other top two teams in the division, pretty good place to continue to prove yourself and put up good results.
Yeah, and I think specifically with the Colorado game, obviously they didn't get a chance to play Dallas in the postseason. But what I'm intrigued to see, and obviously Colorado is going to have to deliver this on their front, but how does Winnipeg combat and correct some of their biggest issues against the Avalanche in that playoff series? And to me, number one is, are they able to handle a ferocious, tenacious, nonstop forecheck if the Avalanche play that way in this game tonight? That was the biggest thing to me, because they could not get out of their own zone, and the Avalanche were really heavy on the Jets defensemen, and it was basically from that point on, you're spending 2/3 of the game inside your own end. And the Jets really weren't able to generate anything offensively because they struggled so mightily in terms of breaking out of their own end. So that there's that element of it to me to see, okay, especially, somebody like Neil Pionk, who's played so well all season long, but did struggle against the Avalanche. If he's able to show that there's been tangible improvement there, I think that's a very promising sign for Winnipeg moving forward and then heading into April, May, and potentially June. The other one would be, Colorado, sure, they did, forecheck well, and they scored a ton of goals, but it wasn't highlight reel goals in that series outside of, 1 or 2 from a car. How many deflection goals were there in the series? Like, 10 through 5? Like, I don't know what the number is, but it felt like an obscene amount. And is Winnipeg going to be able to have a strategy in place to put body on body away from the net? Because a lot of those weren't, right in front of Hellebuck. There were kind of layered screens and layered deflections, and Colorado clearly saw something on tape, and they took advantage of it, and Winnipeg didn't have an answer for it. So I'm intrigued, like, specifically with those two main areas. That's something where, win or lose, if they show improvements in, then you could say, okay, coaching has, noted some of the issues that plagued them last year, and they've put steps in place to try to eradicate that. I think that would be a pretty positive sign, even if the Jets lost, say, 3-2 to Colorado tonight.
You know what? It's a great point, because while most of the personnel is the same from last year, and we look at, hey, how can these guys be better and be the 10% better that Scott Arniel says? I mean, listen, there was a lot of discourse that, Jared Bednar was able to make some pretty significant adjustments in that series that paid major dividends, and the Jets really didn't have the answers for it. And, it's part of the reason why they were out when they were out. I do think, to your point, this is a chance, to make a statement that they're here, they're a new team, they're able to play this team in a different way and be more successful. But I think maybe more than any game this year, I think we can probably talk about the impact of coaching on the Winnipeg Jets that maybe we had in just a random Tuesday night game like they had against Utah, where they played very well defensively.
Yeah, and to be honest, it's obvious with a 12-1 start so far, but you can already see legitimate coaching decisions, strategical moves play a big part in where the Jets are right now. Special teams, obviously, night and day. I mean, Winnipeg currently has the greatest power play of all time, Huss. That is not hyperbole. No team has rocked to 44%. So there's that part of it too, right? But even just some of the little things too. Like I'm trying to remember which game it was. It was one of the home games, though. It might have been the Pittsburgh game where Scott Arniel called a timeout, just kind of your old-fashioned timeout of, hey, let's take a breather here, let's try to rally, and let's move forward here. Screw the coach's challenge. Let's just try to get our game on track. And they turned a 2-0 deficit into a pretty comfortable victory after that. So like little things like that, where you might not have necessarily seen that in years past. Those are some of the things that I've kind of enjoyed seeing so far. So look, 5-on-5, the Jets were a pretty good team last year, and outside of the Colorado series, there weren't really necessarily big changes needed to be made there, but it has just been a few little tactical decisions, basically an overhaul of the special teams. And that's been a big part of it. So again, it's one of those things that can be difficult to parse out during the regular season. And Scott Arniel's going to have his big test, assuming the Jets make the playoffs. Is he going to be able to adapt on the fly? But so far, more than so good. He's definitely answered the bell. Him and the rest of his coaching staff have answered the bell so far.
You know what? You bring up the special teams and the power play, which has just been, nuclear. 44.4% right now. Number 2 in the league at 37%, which is a pretty damn good clip, is the Colorado Avalanche. And I kind of mentioned this in the open talking with Remis. I would be surprised if the coaching staff and the PK units weren't spending a little bit more time on video, probably video that they don't want to watch because it's probably pretty scary watching McKinnon and Rantanen do what they're doing. But I got to say, obviously goaltending is a big factor in any individual game. But who steps up and is able to neutralize the other team's power play is going to go a long way, I think, to winning this hockey game. And as much as we'll talk about making the most of your power play opportunities, I think the penalty killers are going to need to step up the most. And it's a great time for that, because I thought a big reason why the Jets were able to win in the fashion that they did against Utah on Tuesday night was an improved PK unit that had given up a few in recent games, especially quickly into power plays before things really got set up.
Yeah, talking about watching film from last year, I don't know if the Avs are going to spend a second watching last year's Winnipeg power play because it's just, which is again hilarious.
Hope they do.
It would be great. But again, hilarious. Same personnel, completely different unit. So it's like Bednar would look at it and be like, "This is useless. It's a different team we're playing." In tonight's game there. But, it's pretty hard to ignore the penalty kill success for the Jets and not include Connor Hellebuyck in that, because his shorthanded save percentage is, I know Shesterkin's carrying the Rangers right now, but, those two are going neck and neck right now in terms of helping to erase any defensive shortcomings that have happened so far. And I thought Hellebuyck made a couple really, really nice saves in that Utah game on the man advantage. But this is where, again, the coaching thing is going to come into play here for the Jets, because, look, there are plays that McKinnon, Makar, and Rantanen are going to make that will break down any penalty kill unit in the NHL. Sometimes there's going to be goals and plays that happen where you tip your cap and say, yep, you have a legendary player. We don't, and that's just the way it goes sometimes. But you can't give up easy goals in front of your net on the power play. You can't give up easy deflections in the middle of the slot. Those are things that are at least controllable if you're the Winnipeg Jets, and that needs to be taken away as an option for Colorado in this game. If McKinnon and Makar want to dipsy doodle through 3 guys and score, well, congrats, you did it. Like
them's the breaks.
Yeah, like that. You'll live with, though. You don't want it to happen, but you'll live with it. But it's going to be, and Nichushkin not being in the game is a big break for the Jets there, because he's basically there for Lardy net front presence there, right? But if you give away, second, third chance opportunities and freebies in the slot from a tip, those are the ones that end up killing you there. So
just on an aside about Nichushkin, I still really do wonder how this works with him coming back to the club. This is not a guy coming back off of an injury. This is a guy that, because of off ice things, has left the team in the lurch in the last 2 playoff series. And it was most devastating to them last year, knowing what had happened the year before and seeing how dominant he could be in the first round. And I'll remember some of those interviews with the players afterwards. And you could see they really felt burned. And when you're building a team, especially a team that, aspires to go long. You have to have that level of trust. And I mean, like, they don't really have any other choices because the Landeskog issue, everything they have cap-wise, I mean, they kind of need him to come back and play and fit in again. But I do think that there is going to be some mediation that needs to happen within that locker room and the top players on that team especially, that you could just tell were so frustrated and really felt like they got burned last year in the playoffs when he got that 6-month suspension.
Yeah, well, I mean, could have been the difference between them playing for a second Stanley Cup. You know, I know like Dallas was the better team in their series for sure, but I mean, you're talking about a guy that, I mean,
we saw it in the first round.
We saw it. You saw it when they won the cup. Like, he's a legitimate. Maybe he doesn't get the name recognition some of the other big guys, especially on that team, do, but he's a legitimate game series changer. So he's going to have to rebuild the trust between himself and the rest of the players on that team. There's no doubt about that. But it's kind of like what you said too, where yes, they're going to be pissed, and they rightfully should be pissed. But I think they also understand, I don't know if we win a Stanley Cup without him in the lineup. So, like, we need to welcome him back. Like, right? So, like, there's certainly a give and take there. And maybe, you know, from Colorado's side of things, there's no real big expectations on this, right? It's like, hey, if he comes back and his head's on straight and he's able to contribute with us, great. If not, well, we've done it before. We'll have to do it again. So they were, I think rightfully, they were very, very disappointed with how things went there. And there's really nothing that Chushkin can say at this point. It's just, you got to act, right? Like, so like show us with your actions.
He's got one chance to save his career.
Yeah.
I mean, one more strike.
Exactly.
Then that's it for him. And he'll be back and he'll be playing in the KHL, and we'll probably never hear from him again. Hey, listen, before we wrap it up, Saturday, Jets and Dallas, another huge tilt. Dallas is back. They get Chicago tonight for their first game since being in Finland, and then we'll travel to Winnipeg for that early game. But I've got to get your thoughts on Bombers Riders. I mean, this is just seemingly, I would be surprised if this wasn't a really, really close, exciting football game. I do think Saskatchewan is a much better version of their team that we've seen come here and not win over the past 5 or 6 years. Where are you at on Saturday at 5:30 down at Princess Auto Stadium?
I mean, it's funny because I think when you're watching that Riders-Lions game and even talking about who would be the best opponent to face, and maybe it's just because Vernon Adams has the Bombers number, but I was like, man, I don't know if I want to face that BC offense and see them come into Winnipeg.
They
and Adams
shut him out the last time he was here.
But the Saskatchewan defense, they made that offense look so impotent. I mean, I was really, my ultimate point being the Riders defense looked really, really good in that game. And I do think that I still think the Bombers are going to take this one, but I might take the under, and I don't think it's going to be a celebratory final 5 minutes of the fourth quarter. It's going to be the fine margins in this one, and as we've really seen all season long, Huss, if Zach Collaros on the offense just take care of the football, they don't lose many games. If there's a couple picks and a fumble, whatever it is, Saskatchewan is more than talented and capable enough to steal one in Winnipeg. So that is really where I think this one hinges on. And I'll put trust in the Bombers being the veteran-laden team that they are, that they're going to be able to avoid back-breaking mistakes like that. And again, especially with football, like that extra week off is so, so massive. And the ability to get some of your key guys rested up, even if there's no injuries that need to be overcome, just to be that extra 10, 20% fresher, whatever it is, I think that ultimately is going to be the difference here in a really, really tight, low-scoring game, though. I think that, ultimately we're going to see, it might be first to 20 points wins here. And I think I still feel confident that Winnipeg is going to be able to do just enough to get past the Riders here.
Yeah, this is going to be a great test. And as I say, I think this Rider team is far more capable of winning than maybe previous editions of the Riders. I mean, I think back to the West Final, the December game, and what was it, 21? I mean, if you recall, the Bombers turned the football over 5 times in the first half. If they do that on Saturday, it's done. And Saskatchewan's going to be playing in the Grey Cup.
100%.
And your point about ball security, we look at earlier in the season when they were turning the ball over a lot, what that happened to the record. Like, this team isn't high octane enough to outscore 3 and 4 turnovers. And you probably look at the end of the day and say, who won the turnover differential? That team's probably winning the football game. But we did see the Bomber defense force a couple turnovers from Trevor Harris when they were here for the Banjo Bowl. But I'll tell you what, that team is actually playing really well right now. Any lean on Toronto and Montreal, which really tight matchup. I mean, to me, that one, even more so than this one, to be honest, is almost a coin toss.
I don't have a good read on it. I really don't. I mean, I also thought Toronto-Ottawa would be a lot closer than it ultimately ended up being. But, Ottawa just couldn't get a stop throughout the entire game.
And they were brutal in the red zone, too.
Yeah, I don't really know. It's tough too because and you look back to how last year played out when did any of us expect Toronto to get absolutely curb stomped with how well the regular season went and how middling Montreal was for the majority of it there? I think we might see 2 borderline classic division finals here, Huss. I don't think there's a whole lot separating either of these 2 matchups. I don't have a strong lean in Toronto, Montreal, one way or the other. I think it'll be more high scoring than Winnipeg, Saskatchewan. I might even give just a slight edge to the Argos with how well Chad Kelly and that Argos offense played in that game. I know Montreal's defense is a much different beast compared to Ottawa, but that one I might lean a little bit more towards recency bias and say that the Argos get a sliver of revenge from last year.
Yeah, and from a Bomber standpoint, I just remember what that front 7 did the last time they came here, really the last time the Bombers lost a football game. And they're no joke, and if they can get in and get to Cody Fajardo, they could make it a longer afternoon. But I know, much like you mentioned the Bombers and the extra week of rest, the extra week of prep, I think that's going to be, you give that extra time to Noel Thorpe and Jason Moss, and I think they'll be ready to go. It should be great, and I think you can make an argument that it really is a toss-up in both of these matchups, and we can see any of the teams on each side meet in the Grey Cup, where we'll be broadcasting from next week. We'll probably talk to you from Vancouver at some point. Brandon, great stuff. I'm sure the skates and plates have been fun rocking these days. When's the next episode, and what's on tap?
Yeah, you could pretty much just, record one and play them out for a few weeks in a row, right? Jets are flawless, another win, away we go. No, one coming out tomorrow morning, breaking down the Avs game and then looking ahead to the busy schedule. The gauntlet continues for the Jets there. So, yeah, we'll have something coming out early tomorrow morning.
Good stuff, buddy. I'll look forward to it. Thanks so much, and enjoy tonight's game and enjoy Super Saturday here in the Peg.
You as well. We'll chat next week.
Good stuff. Thanks so much. There's Brandon Rewucki. All right, we got over 400 in chat right now. Hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already. And please, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're just about there at 12,000 subs. Hopefully we can do that heading into the weekend with all the excitement over both Winnipeg, the Jets, and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And speaking of that, Scott Billeck's going to come up. We're going to hit both of those topics with him right away. Justin Dunk a little bit later on. But if you missed the start of the show, we have teamed up with our friends at Princess Auto for Super Saturday to hopefully put the win in both of our Winnipeg teams. The Jets, who are playing at 2 against the Dallas Stars in a big Central Division matchup, and then the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the Riders in the West Final. We are looking for one of the biggest Winnipeg fans to get ready for the long haul and do the doubleheader. Courtesy of Princess Auto, we've got 2 great club seats for the Jets-Dallas game at 2 p.m. and 2 lower bowl tickets for the Bombers and Riders on Saturday at 5:30. Now, what you're going to want to do is head over to our social media feeds at Sports Talk WPG. Easiest one might be to go to the Twitter, but you can also do on Instagram. And you'll see there's a video. I kind of roll it out. But very simple. What we're looking for is big Winnipeg fans. Drop a picture of yourself wearing Jets gear, wearing Bomber gear, or I would say it might help your cause to have something of both, maybe a Jet jersey, Bomber hat. You figure it out. And tomorrow on the show, we will be announcing the winner, and that winner is going to be able to bring a friend and join me for Jets and Stars and then Bombers Riders. So again, go to our Instagram or our X, check out the post, fire back a picture, or if you're just doing Instagram, just post it, use the hashtag Super Saturday, and tag Sports Talk Winnipeg. And tomorrow, later on in the show, before the Marlboro race, we'll show off our winning pick. We'll announce the winner, and we'll get that lucky Winnipeg fan ready to do the double dip. Thanks again to Princess Auto for their great support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. And hey, if you're not going to the Jet game and you are going to the Bombers, don't forget the Princess Auto tailgate zone is going to open early, 2 p.m. They'll be showing the Argos Alouettes game, and we're going to have a high of 11 or 12 degrees. It should be a great, great time out there. I'll be coming a little later because I and our winner will be down, hopefully seeing the Jets take out the Dallas Stars. It should be great. Thanks again to Princess Auto for their support of us, and of course the Winnipeg Jets and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Let's put that win in Winnipeg. Good luck on the contest, everyone. Get those in. You've got until tomorrow lunchtime. We'll pick the winner just before the show and announce it on Winnipeg Sports Talk tomorrow. Obviously we'll be there at the game on a Saturday, and we'll be enjoying the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers Canadian club. But this is also the season where we get those exclusive invitation series from our friends at Canadian Club. And the 18-year-old High Proof is out now. It just was released at the Spirit Festival, I guess, on the Manitoba Spirits of Distinction release on November 2nd. It is a great value considering it's an 18-year-old rye compared to the 15-year-old did last year, and it's the same price at just $79.99. Now, this is the second release of the invitation series following the 15-year Sherry Cask that was released last November. It's Canadians' first ever 18-year-old whiskey. The elevated expression offers this well-known, smooth, well-balanced taste of Canadian Club Classic, carefully aged and bottled at a higher proof for a full-bodied tasting experience. Already receiving international recognition, the CC Classic 18-year-old High Proof was awarded gold at the 2024 International Wine and Spirit Competition, demonstrating its exceptional quality and craftsmanship. This exclusive one-time release is available across Canada now, available at Manitoba liquor marts now, and both for gift giving and for entertaining. I would suggest that you whiskey lovers get down to your Manitoba liquor marts and grab the latest invitation series release from our friends at Canadian Club today with the classic 18-year-old High Proof. Billeck's coming up. I do want to thank Wallace & Wallace for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk, the fencing and overhead door specialists in Manitoba. Since 1946, they've been doing it for Manitobans. If your property needs the security and protection of a new fence, they've got you covered with vinyl, ornamental, welded wire, chain link, or wood fences. And if it's time to replace your garage door, they have Winnipeg's largest selection of overhead garage doors. 204-452-2700 is the number. The Wallace & Wallace team will arrange a time to come out and give you a free estimate if you give them a call. Also, check them out online, wallacefences.com, or pop down to their showroom on Lawson Crescent off of Kenniston. And hey, as we get into the holidays, I know many of you are kind of looking at your schedules and looking at your closet and realize, damn, I got to up my menswear game. Well, we can take care of that. Head on down to our pals at F Apparel at 190 Smith Street, Winnipeg's #1 menswear store. Custom suits beginning at $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and an incredible selection of menswear accessories. If you're getting married or in a wedding party this year, make sure to talk to the fellas at F about a 15% discount when they get your suits for the big day at F Apparel. Again, they're downtown 190 Smith Street. Make an appointment and find out more online at F. That's EPHapparel.com. All right, let's talk a little bit more Jets and Bombers. Justin Dunk coming up in about 20 minutes. Scott Billeck from the Winnipeg Sun joins us now. Billeck, what's going on? How are you?
Yeah, it's going, man. Big day in a couple days. It's going to be Yeah, really looking forward to that.
You're gonna bang off both? I was giving Mike a hard time for being so soft for just going home after the hockey game.
Yeah, no, I gotta go. We got only 2 sports reporters, so but that's a big game. So I will be there as soon as we're done with the Jets. And it depends on how the Jets games go. I might even leave a little bit early to try and beat the traffic and beat the rush, but we'll see how it goes. So, but yeah, it's gonna be a big day. And I mean, what else could you ask for too, other than a Grey Cup against the Saskatchewan Rough Riders? The Bombers getting a chance to beat the Rough Riders to head to a 5th straight Grey Cup is it's a heck of a I mean, you couldn't really paint that picture any better.
I just mentioned we're doing a contest with our friends at Princess Auto for one of the biggest Winnipeg sports fans to win tickets to both games. Check our social media feeds for that. And I should mention, just while we're talking about getting from one game to the other, I did reach out, and I'm going to try and get somebody from Transit on for the show tomorrow. So we'll have some information for those of you that haven't taken the blue line before, how you jump on it. That's pretty much the only way I get to Bomber games right now. I mean, the rapid transit is so fast, it drops you off right there. But for those that haven't or are planning on doing it or still thinking about can they make it, we'll have information on that for it. Listen, why don't we start with the Bomber game and we'll get to the Jets in a minute. Mm-hmm. To me, this is a way more dangerous Saskatchewan team coming in than we've seen maybe in recent years. And listen, Corey Mace has done a great job. He's up for Coach of the Year. Yep. We knew that their defense was legit, but it seems like this offense is coming around at the most important time. I would argue this is one of the biggest tests the Bombers have had over the course of this championship era, if you will, winning 4 straight West titles. That's coming to the park on Friday at 5:30.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said about experience on their offense, right? Ouellette, obviously, at running back. And I think Trevor Harris is the one that, I mean, we don't always view Trevor Harris as this, let's say upper echelon or top tier quarterback in this league. Problem with Trevor Harris is he's very accurate and very good. I mean, that's basically it, right? I mean, and so you have to give, and then you see some of these guys that have come up in the receiving core and the way that they're moving the ball. I mean, you obviously saw it last week in the West Semi against BC. I thought Trevor Harris sort of, I don't know if toyed with BC's defense, but he played really well. And so that's the thing, right? Like, the Bombers are going to have to play. If you want to win, you're going to have to play a pretty darn good defensive game, right? They need Terrell Ford to be the CFL All-Star that he is. They need Willie Jefferson to be, and this, the one thing about the Bombers too is, they haven't been a team that's really, there's not a lot of blitzing, not a lot of that. So, for a guy that likes to throw the ball a lot, they're going to have to be on point with their coverage. And yeah, it's a tough game. Again, I think the biggest thing that the Bombers need is their offense to show up, right? That's the key point or the linchpin here to me, is that if the Bombers offense shows up like they did, let's say that 45-0 game against BC, Bombers have a really good chance in this game, right? Because that offense is going, it's moving it downfield, it's obviously chewing minutes off the clock. But more than anything, they're not trying to find points, they're not trying to whatever, they're dictating the game. And so the biggest thing that the Bombers can do is put pressure on Harris to deliver. And that's, I think, where Winnipeg can win this game, not easily, but it can get a pretty good they could take a pretty good chunk out of Saskatchewan if they have that offense going. And so we'll see what happens. It's a really good game. It's got to be a toss-up, right? I mean, I think, coming into this game, I don't know who's favored. I'm sure the Bombers are in terms of betting lines, but I think if you go into that game, I don't think anybody could say one way or the other who's actually favored in this game. Because
I think the Bombers are an obvious favorite because they're at home, because they got the extra week of rest. I mean,
sure.
And that's what the spread tells you. Like,
Sure.
Normally you're going to give a team 3 points for the home field, and I would argue that home field is way more impactful in Winnipeg than it is anywhere else in the league. And this is a 3.5 point spread. You got the extra week. Yeah. But if you take this basically says this is the venue and Saskatchewan's up against it because of the circumstances coming out of the regular season. But you put these teams right now on a neutral field somewhere and flip a coin between two of them. Back to your point about the offense, though, and I'm totally with you. And I think the start is going to be like, I still think back, and again, this is a very different team on the other side, not as much with Winnipeg, but 3 years ago when these teams played in the West Final, and the Bombers turned the football over 5 times in the first half.
Yeah.
Saskatchewan did not have an offense that was really able to manufacture anything, and the Bomber defense was able to just hold them in the game, and then they were able to get it done in the second half. There's no way the Bombers can do that. They have to take care of the football, which goes without saying. But I really do think a Buck Pierce has a challenge, and he's had 2 weeks to get his offense ready for what they'll do when they get the football. If they can establish Brady Oliveira early, but also, Scott, to kind of do more than just dink and dunk for first downs, I think that puts them in a really good position, because I think what you would like to do is put Saskatchewan in the position where they have to air it out a little bit. Trevor Harris put the ball in danger a little bit, kind of like we saw in the Banjo Bowl, where he threw those 2 picks that ended up being pretty decisive in the final score. So I think we're going to find out a lot about this matchup. Now, it's a 60-minute game. I would be surprised if it isn't close towards the end. But I'll be really looking to see what the Bombers can do in their first few possessions, and hopefully at the same time kind of minimize what Saskatchewan does to get out to a great start. And that is only going to get that ramped up crowd even more into the game and be more of a factor.
Bully ball, Huss. They need to be able to play some bully ball, and that's on both sides of it, right? And I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think you got to put the MOP. My guess is my pick for the MOP this year. I don't vote, but it would be Brady. You need him ramming the ball. These things always get clipped when you say these things. So, but you need them pushing the ball upfield. You need Brady running hard, hitting the lanes, hitting his holes hard, and going from there. Right? I mean, this is what they do. This is how you break down a defensive line. This is how this team is, able to. And the other thing too is Zach's got to complete some passes. Right? That's the other thing too, because it's been this is the thing about the Bombers this year that's been so. It's their question mark this year, right? Like, it's just some days and some games that offense just they can't complete a pass, or you're right, the dinking and dunking and all that stuff. It's just not. It's not enough against this team. I mean, if you can go out, put a touchdown on the board on your first drive, again, it's just make Saskatchewan. This is the thing. Pull out all the stops in this game. Open up the playbook. Do some stuff, right? Like, make it hard on this Saskatchewan team to play football, to come back, to win the offenses there. I mean, 30,000 odd people, 33,000 people in the crowd are going to make it very difficult on this offense, especially Trevor Harris. But the Bombers need to come out and deliver, and they got to deliver on offense. Their defense has been really good all year. They have, arguably the best corner in the league. I think there's a lot of room here for the Bombers to kind of take over the game a little bit early, but we'll see. I mean, we've said this before about the Bombers, and you expect them to go in this game and to be on it, and they haven't always been on it, and that's almost always been the offense that just hasn't gotten there. But they need to play to their strengths, let Brady do his thing. Bully ball, and I think that's what they need to do.
Listen, Saskatchewan their run defense is great. I mean, Brady in the Banjo Bowl was like 42 yards on the ground, and then in the Banjo Bowl was like 43. The Labor Day game was 42 or so. A lot more passing from Zach until he was out of the lineup, and then I think Strevler ran it a little bit more when he came in. The difference, though, in the game here was Brady Oliveira was way more involved in the passing game. And again, I think that's the way you may have to get Brady involved. I mean, I'm not sure I'd be hitting a rushing prop as much as a combined rushing and receiving prop, because in that game, Brady Oliveira had 6 catches on 7 targets for 60 yards. And, if Brady Oliveira can account for more than 100 yards, the Bombers will be in great shape. If that number is just 42 yards on 12 carries or something like that, probably not good unless they are really successful airing it out. And I think they'll be able to do that at times, but you got to pick your spots, and it's not going to be just bomb all day against that Rider D.
Yeah, and I think the other thing here too is that O-line has to play well. Maybe more important than anything, right? Keep Zach upright. He's shown a little bit better over the course of the season to be able to scramble a little bit better. But again, you need to give him some time. Give him some time to make some throws. And I think that's the more I think about this game, I think about how many times Zach's been sacked this year, and I'm like, okay, yeah, they can't be getting to Zach as easily as in some of the games that they played this year, right? So, yeah, there's a lot. The Bombers have to show up and show out, right? I mean, that's basically what it is here, and it's not. It doesn't feel as automatic as it has in years gone by. This team has had to really dig deep and scratch and claw. And I think that serves them well. I think that'll serve this team well in this game and potentially in the Grey Cup next week. But they have to come out and sort of assert a little bit of dominance here, show that this is a team that can go and get it done. And yeah, you need everybody. Everybody's got to step up and play, Huss. And that's how this Bomber team can win games, and that's how they're going to have to win this one, because you're right. And there was not a lot between these two teams in the regular season, obviously. I mean, obviously Winnipeg wins the thing, but it was right down to the wire whether the Bombers were going to get and right down to the wind and a shanked kick for the Bombers to finish in first place and to be able to host this game. So Saskatchewan came on strong at the end, and they're looking good. And obviously they have. I mean, yeah, they played last week. I think you can argue both sides of that, right? The week of rest is good, but also sometimes the week playing and just the momentum that you can carry from that game. You saw how jacked up the Riders were after that win. That can carry over too. So yeah, really, really excited to watch this game, and like all of them, but this one probably more so than most of them, because this one feels like it truly is. It's a very even game going into it.
This is it. You got the best rivalry in the league. You got the biggest stakes of the season. I'm sure the CFL's fired up about it. The ratings will be massive, and the stadium's going to be wild. While we're on this topic, let me put out the why not question of the day to the chat. Why not question of the day for Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray. From a Bomber perspective, what is the one thing that has to happen for the Bombers to win this game? Where are you looking at in Saturday evening's game as the number one factor that can take the Bombers to victory and to Vancouver for the Grey Cup? Let us know in the chat right now on the Why Not question of the day. Let's move over to the Jets tonight. And as I said, I was happy we've got this big game tonight against Colorado. So we don't spend another few days obsessing over what's going to happen on Saturday with that wild doubleheader. But I knew you've been around the rink. It was interesting to hear Adam Lowry and Coach Scott O'Neill talk today. Obviously it's not a revenge game as much as, hey, listen, you circled this one on the calendar. Nothing you can do tonight is going to change what happened last spring. But I really do get the sense that this team has spent a lot of time talking about what happened last spring, trying to acknowledge and accept what they did and didn't do and be better. And I do think this isn't just any other game on the schedule as Colorado comes tonight. It's not.
I think what you hear from these Jets players today, and anybody that you talk to about this game, it is another game, right? It's just another, it's game 14 of the regular season. It's not that big of a deal, but at the same time, it's a big deal because they want to go out and show that what they learned they can use against Colorado in this game. But I think Colorado can see what the Jets have done, and the amount of time they spent thinking about this, and when we talk about this getting 5 to 10% better, I think we're seeing that. It's not something you can really explain all the time, right? Because you don't necessarily. It's not something you tangibly see early on in the season or anything like that. But you're seeing it now with the Jets being 12-1. Like, I think there's a lot of stuff that you're seeing this year, but I think there was a good recognition today of, this is a big game, yada, yada, yada. But keeping it in perspective, Huss, the Jets don't need to come out and try and making a point tonight, right? They don't need to do that. their play will do that if they play and stick to the game. That's the one thing that this team has been good. And, that early lesson against Toronto of what happens when you sort of get away from it for too long, that could hurt them against this Colorado team too, right? So as injured as they are and some of the issues, we don't even know if Cale Makar is playing tonight. It's a game time decision. So yeah, I mean, I'm never one for these games. Like, you lose a 7-game series and then, you take some revenge on the first time you play them. Who cares, right? I mean, it's not that big of a deal. And I get why players don't look at it. But I think the Jets, are looking at this in a constructive way, let's say. I think this team knows that this is the perspective that they need to have on this. I think this whole team knows that whatever they do this season, whether they win 81 games or they finish with 55 wins or whatever it ends up being, their season is going to be judged on what they do in the first round and beyond, right? And I think there's a really good understanding of that in this dressing room this year. And, again, it's hard to sort of relay this sometimes to people because they don't see it. And some people are sitting out there, okay, when's the other shoe going to drop on this Jets team? It's possible. I mean, this team's going to face some adversity this year, right? It's going to happen. Somebody's going to get injured. It's just the way it is, right? This is hockey. But I think if you got a chance to go in that room, and I'm lucky enough to do that for what I do, you would see there's just a different determination on this team. There's a different, it's not a swagger, but it sort of is, but it's not. Nobody's heads are balloon. Nobody thinks that this team is just going to run the regular season and then trot away to the Stanley Cup. They're very aware of the game that they have to play, and I'm fairly certain, based on talking to a lot of guys, conversations, whether it's on the record or off the record, this team really understands how poorly they got away from their game against Colorado, and how scared is not the right word. They just got sort of overwhelmed, right? They got overwhelmed by a game, and they just didn't sort of, in the end, sort of trust that what they were doing so well in the regular season could do well again in the playoffs. And I think there's just, if you want that 5 or 10% difference this year, it's really up in between the years, right? I really think that this team knows when it's getting away from it now. They know how to get it back. They know what their game looks like that way. When it's being played well, they know when it's not playing well. They know how to adjust. I think they started to learn that last year. I said it a lot of times, like this team, it wasn't game to game anymore that this team would figure out how to get back into games. It was in game. I think now this team is just really well fine-tuned in the way that they know how to play. And that it's really looking forward. So yeah.
Let me just say, like this week, I thought, coming off of the road after those two kind of just barnstorming wins in Detroit and Columbus.
Yeah.
It's been a great example of different ways of winning hockey games. I mean, listen, and we've talked enough about that absurd goal that Tampa scored and then the unsuccessful challenge and then the power play goal right after that. Like in a lot of times, that 2-goal early deficit against a team of Tampa's quality would have sort of just blown up the afternoon, and that would have been it. They literally didn't miss a beat after that. And listen, Josh Morrissey made that gorgeous pass that got them on the board to Vlad, but they just continued coming. And it was not led by one line or another line. I mean, you had defensemen scoring, you had forward scoring, and a win like that can really boost your confidence against teams like Colorado. And then they followed it back with a very different game on Tuesday, Scott. That was more
a tough game.
The defensive structure that we saw in the bonus era, the patience to not allow much in front of your own net and be confident that something will happen later on. And really the difference between this year and last year was on display in that game, in that it was their special teams that came through. Now the power play has been nuclear all year long. It's at 44%. Yeah. But it was a 0-0 game late in the second period. I mean, when you're at that point, those games can go either way. You get the power play goal, and then the PK steps up the way that it did going 4-for-4. And I think that was perfect timing for the power play to get a clean sheet, because we can talk a lot about the top 2 power plays in the league tonight. To me, the most stress is going to be on those PK units when they're out there tonight, regardless of which team has the 5-on-4 advantage.
Yeah, honestly, this team's just been battle tested, right? And there's a lot of guys that on this team that have been here for a long time. They've been through a lot of, obviously some good times. They've been through probably more bad times than good. Some of these teams remember 2017, 18, or some of these players remember 21, 22 and how brutal that season was. And some of the things that were said, truths or half-truths or whatever you want to call it, but the sort of the wake-up call, and then the Rick Bowness coming in and sort of how the culture started to shift and getting rid of Blake Wheeler and really handing this team over to a different leadership group, or at least handing this team over to Adam Lowry and letting him sort of kind of, galvanize the team and bring guys together. Now, and then going to a new coach, and after the playoff losses 2 years straight, I think there's just been a lot of learning. So there's just been a lot of learning, but there's two ways you can do that. It's sort of like the Tampa game. You can either sink or swim, right? And that Tampa game was a good example of, you got hit a couple times and it was, I think what was the word used after the Connor Helbeck, you screwed. They got screwed, right? But they didn't get screwed, right? They might have got screwed in that moment, but that team didn't. There was nothing wavered, right? And that's the thing. Like, we're seeing a lot of that this year, Huss, where this team doesn't waver. Even in that Toronto game, we can go back to it. They were down 4-0 against 6-4. Yeah, you can say whatever, but the team, the belief is strong, right? The belief is strong in this team. And it's a Jets team that this is my 11th year covering this team. I don't remember a team that had this much resolve, because if you look back at 2017-18, that team just could outskill you, right? You could outscore almost anybody in that time. Line had 44 that year, right? Back to back. That was one of the, I think, Scheifele and Wheeler had 91 points that season. Goaltending was tremendous, obviously. Only lost to Pecorine in the Vezina. This team doesn't have some of those attributes, but the attributes that they have now are, just the willingness to compete, the buy-in.
Yeah, I think resiliency is
resiliency, exactly. It's a great word,
really
right?
Is appropriate for it, because Scott, I mean, and the Tampa game was a perfect example, but the amount of times they've gone down early in games and come back and won, has been really impressive. And as I said, I know you'd say, it won't matter one way or the other. I know to the fans in the building that were there in the playoffs, that'll be back there tonight, this is going to be more than a regular game. And I'll tell you what, if the Jets can go in and play their game and win, it's another great step forward, albeit early in the season. Listen, we got to bring on Dunk here, buddy. Looking forward to seeing you at one or both of the venues on Saturday and maybe down there tonight. Thanks so much for doing this, and we'll look forward to all of your reporting in the Winnipeg Sun.
Yep, see you guys.
All right, there's Scott Billeck. We're going to have Justin Dunk come on right away. Of course, talking about the sold-out West Final on Saturday afternoon. Just before we do that, though, let's get to fan feedback brought to you by our friends at Fans First, Winnipeg's #1 spot for buying and selling tickets on the resale market. Normally, we're talking about the options for Jets season ticket holders and people needing Jets tickets. The Bomber game is completely sold out. However, get in price right now at Fans First. If you want to grab a pair in the upper bowl, $80 will get you in, $89, $90. And as we said before, the great thing about Fans First is there's no fees. So when you get the seat up there and you see the tickets are $80 and you buy 2 seats, boom, the charge is $160, not $240 after massive secondary market ticket charges. So if you're looking to score Bomber tickets and you don't win our contest, check our social medias for that. You can get to Fans First, and they've got you hooked up. Lots coming in. We asked what was the key for the Bombers to win this game. It would be nice to see the Bomber offense dictate this game from boring Sean Monahan. We were speaking about Brady Oliveira and getting him more involved. BA Split says they play a good zone D. Brady checkdowns should be open. We see another one that says the Bombers need to rush for 75 plus. which they haven't done yet so far against the Riders this year. That's from Comet. Sean established the run game as well. Les wants a 63-yard field goal. See how the Wind is. Although the Wind has certainly smiled on the Bombers before that. Cowboy turnovers. To me, that is it more than anything. And some good red zone defense from Waiters keeping Saskatchewan to field goals. Keep on the comments coming for fan feedback. Brought to you by Fans First, by fans, for fans, no fees. Check out the site today at fansfirst.ca. All right, let's bring in Justin Dunk from 3 Down Nation to get ready for Super Saturday in the Canadian Football League. Dunk, what's going on? How are you? Wait, hold on a second. I think we got you muted here. Reem?
Is
that
good
on
now.
us? Hey, what's going on?
We're back. Good, buddy. How are you?
Dude, I'm so fired up. I mean, our hockey team's 12-1. We got a huge game tonight against Colorado. And then Saturday, starting off downtown with the Jets and the Dallas Stars, and then ripping down to Princess Auto Stadium for the Bombers, Riders, in the West Final. I mean, what could be better than that?
It's quite a day, my man. You're going to be busy.
Yeah, we'll definitely be busy. I've been training for this for years, though. We've done this a couple other times. The Bomber Rider West Final in 2021 had, I believe, the Jets Leafs later on that night. And I remember kind of going back from one. That was the game that we were so bloody cold. I think I had a toque and a scarf on the entire hockey game, and it took about four hours to warm up from. Luckily, at least for the fans, we're actually looking at a seasonably beautiful day for Winnipeg in the middle of November. 11 Celsius is the scheduled high. Now, again, it'll be a little colder by the time it kicks off, but we're not talking about -10, -15 like we've had before. So the stadium will be packed. It should be loud. And what could be better than Bombers Riders for a trip to the Grey Cup? You, of course, have been doing pre and post and covering the Riders all year long. Let me ask you, how fired up is the Rider Nation after that big win last week against BC, knowing they've got a shot at the standard in the West in the CFL for the last number of years, which also happens to be their biggest rival?
Indeed, it does. Rider Nation is definitely pretty excited, and so are the Saskatchewan Roughriders under first-year head coach Corey Mason. It seems like this team, kind of similar to the Bombers, Huss, is peaking at an ideal time. I hesitate to say right, because right would probably be Grey Cup, but this team is playing very good football. You know what you're going to get from them, and I think that's why Rider Nation is so excited about the possibilities in this West Final. That said, the Bombers have shown recently that it's ultra difficult, and it actually hasn't happened in recent history under this regime where they've lost a West Final at home.
Well, I do make the case that this is a very different Rider team and a much more potent Rider team that's made the trip to Winnipeg and, you know, lost more often than not over the course of like this Mike O'Shea era these last 5 years. They do have a championship level defense. I don't think that's really debatable. They've got a quarterback playing really well, and they've got an offense right now with both a running game and a great stable of receivers that can make you pay in a number of different ways. You know, we'll get to the defense in a minute, but just offensively, Dunk, I mean, what have you seen lately? And is this the best? You mentioned about peaking right now. Is this the best we've seen the Riders take care of the football and move it in a balanced fashion of both passing and running that we've seen all year?
It could be, and especially finishing drives with touchdowns. And you mentioned the Riders' troubles in the Mike O'Shea era. The Riders have not won a game in Winnipeg, regular season or playoffs, since 2018. The quarterback of that Saskatchewan team, Zach Collaros. So this goes a way back, but to focus more on what you're asking about, the offense looked dynamic, especially in that West semifinal win over the BC Lions. You have A.J. Ouellette in the backfield. Raquel Armstead can be a home run hitter himself, so they have some great depth there. The offensive line, led by their coach, Edwin Harrison, he should be commended for the job that he's done all season long, because there's been some injuries and some changes pretty consistently, I should say, along that offensive line, but it doesn't seem to matter. You know, in that football game, Trevor Reed, who had started every single game, was the only offensive lineman to start every single regular season game at the same position for the Riders, all 18 in his rookie season, gets rolled up on. He goes down. Peter Godberg comes back in. He had just gotten healthy, but to start the game was relegated to backup duty, slots back in at center, and then you have Trayvon Tate and Logan Ferland deciding in the huddle, literally, who's going to play left tackle and right tackle. So that's really been the key for this offense, because they've given Trevor Harris time, who he gets the ball out quickly anyways, but to decipher the defense. There was a couple deep shots in that West semifinal, particularly a pump and go to Keyshawn Johnson that was a near touchdown. The offensive line allows him to be able to throw the football down the field at times when they want to pick their spots to do so. And you look at the receiving core, and there's a bunch of weapons there. You have Sean Bain Jr., who goes down for the season with a lower body injury, that shot that he took to his knee. Jarrett Stern steps right in and scores a couple touchdowns at the end of the regular season. Scored in that West semifinal win, the game-clinching touchdown. You look at Keyshawn Johnson, who's used to making head-top catches at Fresno State. He has more receiving yards at Fresno State than Devontae Adams did. He's an ultra-talented guy. Samuel Emilus, back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. Kean Schaefer-Baker is trying to keep himself healthy. He's definitely going to play in this one. We know how talented he can be. Mitch Pecton is able to step up in big moments. So you have this receiving core that has all of these different elements, and Trevor Harris has been dynamite in terms of accuracy, especially, and he led the CFL with a quarterback rating over 108 during the entire regular season. So the Riders are really rounding into form on offense, and I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about Mark Mueller, who's going to empty out the playbook. Last week, Hustler, we saw A.J. Ouellette line up at quarterback in a goal line set and push it into the end zone. So you don't know what's going to come out in the West Final.
To be honest, I'm surprised that the Bombers haven't done that with Brady Oliveira. Considering that they haven't had a lot of success since Streveler left with Wilson in there doing that. But, getting it into the end zone, you mentioned, is going to be so important. I mean, we talk about turnovers, obviously. We'll get to the line of scrimmage, which will dictate a lot. But if you tell me that one team has a red zone efficiency of 20 or 30%, and the other one manages to get a couple more sevens as opposed to threes, that team is probably going to win this game. Because, I thought Bob Irving said it well earlier this week in a tweet. I mean, both of these teams are coming in, playing really good football. The biggest surprise in this game, Dunk, would be if it's not close coming down to it. And, at that point, one play here or there can change everything. The Bombers do have an advantage, two of them actually. One, they're playing at home, which has been a very difficult place to win. It's sold out. The crowd is going to be insane. I think we can guarantee that. They also had the extra week of rest and preparation. How'd the Riders come out of the BC game, and what's practice been like this week? And are there any concerning areas in the starting lineup for Saskatchewan coming out of the West Semi?
The main injury that everyone's focused on in Rider Nation is Trevor Reed, that left tackle who was rolled up on. Corey Mace has said that he's going to try to push through it, but he's usually pretty coy, not quite as coy or zippered tight like Mike O'Shea is with injury news, but it seems like there's a chance Reed could play. But, I don't think that's necessarily a big deal, all respect to Reed, because of how well this offensive line has pieced things together. So other than that, the team came out fairly healthy. CJ Revis, and Kean Schaefer-Baker didn't practice on day one for the Riders, but they were back at it on day two, and I would expect them to be ready. Really a full complement of Riders, except for the guys that have been ruled out for the season, like a Sean Bain Jr. or a Jamarcus Hardrick, even though, he's looking pretty good in terms of rehabbing his lower body injury.
All right, let's talk about that line of scrimmage. The Bombers have not really run the ball with much success against the Riders this year, and frankly, most teams haven't. The difference between the Labor Day game and the Banjo Bowl was the fact that they just started dumping the ball off in a passing away to Brady Oliveira, and he ended up eating up some much bigger yards that way. How do you see the battle in the trenches between these two teams right now, and how much do you think that's going to maybe dictate who ends up going to Vancouver?
To me, I think that is the main thing outside of turnovers, because that's cliche. We know about that. The Riders have forced the most in the CFL, 49 during the regular season, picked off Vernon Adams Jr. 3 times. Corey Mace preaches obsession for possession. But outside that, it is that battle in the trenches. And that's why the Riders have had this, great stretch at the end of the regular season going into the playoffs because they've been so tough and physical in the trenches, just like the Bombers have had throughout their reign, I guess I'll say, here in the West Division and trying to get into a 5th straight Grey Cup. The Bombers have dominated teams in the trenches, especially on the offensive line. And that's the model that the Riders are using, and a lot of other football teams would like to use that as well. So the offensive line has played very physical, and the defensive line might be even more physical, so much so that Miles Brown and Caleb Sanders, who's a rookie, by the way, are starting in the middle, and Anthony Lanier, who's making just over $175,000 this year, like substantially more than those two, double, I think if my math is right, that of Caleb Sanders. He's not playing because he's just not physical enough, and he can't be counted on to stay healthy. So he is back and healthy, but he was a healthy scratch for the West semifinal. Now, Corey Mace said that perhaps if there are lineup changes that they feel like give them the best opportunity to win, Lanier could be in there. But this front seven for Saskatchewan has been physical, especially the guys up front. Scoop Carney on one side, Brian Cox Jr. on the other side. At the defensive end spots, Jameer Thurman leading the way, making the calls, but he's as physical as they come. CJ Revis is the all-CFL linebacker at strong side, the Sam that they call him. And then you have on the weak side there, a bit of a rotation. Adam Auclair and CJ Avery's been an outstanding American for the Riders in his rookie year. So this group's physical up front, and I think it's going to be an absolute battle in the trenches.
Yeah, I cannot wait for this game. And listen, I had time for BC and the story with VA coming back, but I think even if you have no skin in the game, there's nothing like the Bombers and Riders playing, and whether that's even early in the season, never mind Labor Day or Banjo Bowl, Dunk. And with where these teams are, the Bombers having been, after not winning forever, being the standard in the West, the Riders having 2 really ugly years and a big, big turnaround right now under Corey Mace. I don't think he could script anything better for Saturday afternoon here at Princess Auto Stadium. Before we go, let me ask you about the East. Another really intriguing matchup. Toronto's had a much better second half, I think, than Montreal has. Montreal, though, best team all season long. Extra week of rest, extra week of preparation for Moss and Noel Thorpe. How do you see this one shaking out? And do you have a lean either way on who will be representing the East first before we find out who's coming in through the West?
There's a lot of recency bias here, I think, with the Toronto Argonauts, right? We see them put up 58 on the Ottawa Redblacks. Everybody's saying Chad Kelly's playing the best football of any quarterback in the CFL, which, I would definitely argue with. I think Bo Levi Mitchell has his hand up, especially at the end of the regular season. Trevor Harris would too.
I think Harris right now, to be perfectly honest, and that's a little bit of scary for Bomber fans, to be frank.
I would agree. And you look at this matchup and you think Montreal was the best team in the CFL, Hustler, when games mattered for them. Outside of that, they've kind of tried to sleepwalk here through the rest of the regular season and get through
relatively healthy. I will remind you,
healthy.
That was also the same case with Toronto last year before Chad Kelly imploded in the East Final.
Indeed. And I think that the way the Owls handled it was a little bit different, right? We didn't see like groups of starters or, Chad Kelly, for example, didn't start that game in Winnipeg. We saw Cody Fajardo start on the road at BC late in the season. And I think that should help Montreal be better. The fact that they're at home, though, I think, for as many fans that were at BMO Field last year, that home field advantage I don't think was there because of Chad Kelly throwing 4 picks. In Montreal, it's not only going to be loud, Hustler, those air horns are going to be going all game long. It's going to feel, if you're the Argos, like it's right inside your ear. Like that stuff gets annoying. And when you get smacked and you get up and you hear the crowd going crazy and then you just hear the constant air horns, like, as a player mentally, that can wear away at you a little bit. I'm not saying the Argos can't go in there and win, but Montreal has earned that home field advantage, and I feel like they're not getting the respect, the Owls that is, going into this East Final, so that would be my lean.
Just while we've got you here, I'll just see if we've had any line movement or whatever. Nope, pretty much the same. Alouettes a 2-point favorite over the Argos. And after opening up as a 4.5-point favorite, quickly moving to 3.5, it's been pretty static right there at 3.5 for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Dunk, I know this is a busy weekend for you and a busy week for the 3 Down Nation team. Fill people in on what's going on over at 3 Down as we get into the Final Four of the CFL before heading to Vancouver for Grey Cup next week.
Oh, buddy, Grey Cup's going to be awesome. But there's lots going on this weekend. John Hodge will be at the West Final covering it, lock, stock, and bail for 3downnation.com. I'll have the pregame and postgame show on 620 CKRM. And then as we get into Grey Cup week, you can find all the news, especially with outgoing commissioner, I guess we can call him now, Randy Ambrosie, and his State of the League address. There's going to be some interesting tidbits to come out of that. And I think everybody's just curious to see who the two teams are. It sounds like a lot of people in Rider Nation, Hustler, I know Bomber Nation might not want to hear this, but would like a Montreal-Saskatchewan final, harkening back to 2007 and kind of put some of those demons to bed, plus go against Cody Fajardo. But I feel like whichever two teams get there, it's going to make for a great matchup in unbelievable, beautiful city in Vancouver.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm looking forward to seeing you there and doing Winnipeg Sports Talk and CFL 110 from Vancouver next week. Hey, just quickly, just before we go, we mentioned Randy Ambrosie. I know this will be a story we'll kick around next week. Have you heard any potential replacements for the outgoing commissioner early on?
I haven't heard anything yet. It does seem like this is going to be a real process because there's no hard end date for Randy Ambrosie to step aside, which I think is actually a benefit. The one name that I will throw out there, and this is not based on recent reporting, but back during the pandemic, and you can go find the article if you search it on Google, Ken Darrett, 3 Down Nation, you can find it easily there. He was a name that was being kicked around at that time after Randy Ambrosie had that terrible showing asking for, up to $150 million in front of the House of Commons. So that was a name then. I have not heard if he's in the mix now, but, just to give you a name that was talked about, even though that was, I think, a few years ago, that's one that's popped up. There's been some, other former politicians' names that have been bandied about, but I don't want to throw anything out there without sourcing it properly.
Ken Darrett's a really interesting name. It's another guy with Winnipeg ties. I actually grew up, his younger brother was like one of my best friends all growing up, grew up a block over from me. And he was an executive with the Chargers for, 15, 20 years. I'm not too sure what he did after that, but certainly has a big background, is a Canadian guy, a big background in running a successful programs, and it'll be a name that we'll kick around, and I'm sure there'll be a few others floated out next week during Grey Cup week. Dunk, thanks so much for doing this. Have a great broadcast on the weekend. May the best team win, and not one way or another. We'll cheers you for a couple there in BC heading into the big game next week.
Sounds good, Hustler. Thanks for having me on, dude.
Appreciate it. All right, there is our pal Justin Dunk of 3 Down Nation, and also doing pre and post out in Saskatchewan for the Riders. All right, tonight is the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame. Before that, though, a big cheers to our friends at Little Brown Jug.
We're not just for the showboats or the champions. We're here for the good ones. The ones who work hard and show up for others, not to get recognized, but because it's the right thing to do. We'd like to think that our good intentions show up in our beer. We keep working to perfect it, not because we want fame or fanfare, but because you deserve it. 1919, the good you deserve.
Maybe a few LBJs tonight at the hockey game. Cannot wait for that. Great conversation with Dunk. And again, Saturday is going to be so awesome. If you are one of Winnipeg's biggest sports fans and want to put the win in Winnipeg twice and hit the doubleheader, check our social media pages, our Instagram, and our X for the contest. Get your entries in by tomorrow's show, and we'll announce a winner for club seats to the hockey game and some lower bowl seats for the Bombers and Riders tomorrow, courtesy of our friends at Princess Auto. Tonight, man, this is a great night. Best place to be, obviously, is in the barn for Jets Avs. If you're not able to, though, I'd suggest your local Boston Pizza, because you've got Jets Avalanche, pick a player contest, win great food from BP, swag from Royal Sports, And of course, a really intriguing Thursday night football matchup, AFC North battle between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Baltimore Ravens. And then, of course, Super Saturday, every BP will have Jets on. We'll have the CFL East final, and then cranking it up for Bombers Riders at 5:30. If you're staying at home, you can always get the great taste of Boston Pizza by ordering online at bostonpizza.com. And hey, going into Super Saturday, might be a good idea to pop by Royal Sports tomorrow. I know my pal Dom said he popped in. He goes, I needed a new hat for the Bomber game. Of course, you're going to go to Royal Sports for that. Tons of great Bomber gear, including maybe a toque or scarf that might keep you a little warm out in the stands for that. And listen, as the Jets continue tearing up the National Hockey League, if you're looking for a new jersey, a hoodie, a hat, you name it, they've got it at Royal Sports, the biggest and best selection around. All the National Hockey League represented, all the NFL gear, and of course, Royals, the original hockey superstore in Winnipeg for over 40 years with everything you need from full equipment right down to sticks, skate sharpening, pucks, stick tape, you name it. Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. Follow them on Instagram at Royal Sports Winnipeg for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. All right, as I mentioned, tonight is the induction to the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame. An incredible class going in. Ted Irvin, who I believe is going to be introduced by Chris Jericho, his son. Of course, Jennifer Botterill going in. Our great friend, the late Randy Turner. But also a trailblazer in safe sport and inclusion, Dr. Sandra Kirby, who joins us now on another episode of It Takes a Community to Play, brought to you by Sport Manitoba. Really looking forward to this next segment. It is another edition of It Takes a Community to Play with Sport Manitoba, brought to you by Manitoba Liquor and Lotteries. And Thursday night, an incredible class of Hall of Famers go into the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame. And one of those inductees joins us now, Dr. Sandra Kirby. Dr. Kirby, thanks so much for doing this. And first off, congratulations on the great honor of becoming a Hall of Famer.
Thank you, Andrew. That's very kind of you.
You know, you have got such an incredible story, and obviously so much of it is around, you know, your work in safe sport and inclusion. But I did want to get to your athletic start first, because before you kind of pioneered so many of these conversations and programs, you were an Olympian as well, the first ever Canadian women's rowing team. Tell us a little bit on your background in getting into the sport and obviously your Olympic experience.
Yeah, I had tried many sports, and I was always, you know, pretty good, but not really good. And then finally, just by happenstance, I was tapped on the shoulder to try rowing in Victoria. And I turned out to be quite good at it. You know, I loved the water. I was already a pretty good swimmer, pretty good cross-country runner, and I had pretty good balance. And I loved the outdoors. And you put me in a rowing boat, and I fell in the water a few times and had blood on my hands and everything. And I just loved it. I loved it right off the bat. And, you know, it took me about 17 months from there to go to the Olympics. And then I had quite a good career as a rower after I finished my high performance career, where I raced around North America. I finished that in 1981. And then I've continued on as a master's athlete as well. So, and I've won sort of world masters and some cross-country ski world masters as well. I've done quite well there. So yeah,
that's
amazing.
Quite a good
athletic career.
I mean, started, you know, obviously the pinnacle of pretty much any sport is the Olympic Games, but, you know, stayed very active throughout your life and during your time as an academic.
Yeah.
As far as, you know, the intersection of the work that you've done in sport and, you know, what you were doing as an athlete, tell us a little bit about coming to the University of Winnipeg, what you were doing there and how that sort of became a background for you, like with your athletic, to kind of look into some of the issues in sport as a greater body or entity.
Yeah, no, it's a really good question, Andrew. I came to the University of Winnipeg. So I'd done my PhD and I moved east for a job. And then I got a job at the University of Winnipeg and I thought I'm halfway home to BC. And then I loved Winnipeg, so I stopped. It has all 4 seasons. It has everything I need. The University of Winnipeg is a nice, small university. My work was accepted right away. I just felt at home. So and then I never left. And, it gave me room to do what I needed to do in the research, which the research was on sexual harassment and abuse in sport, a highly unpopular topic at the time, particularly for a sport audience, but also for the granting agencies. They weren't about to give money for such a topic. So it was a pretty hard slog at the beginning. There were maybe a handful of us around the world who were doing work in the area until, maybe the mid-90s. And then it started to expand relatively quickly after that.
Well, I guess it was 1994. You gave your first speech at the
first paper,
at the Commonwealth Games.
Yeah.
I have to ask. I mean, was this something that you knew as an athlete was a problem? How did it become such a focus of yours at the beginning?
Yeah, I wish I'd have known as an athlete. Looking back, we all knew, but none of us had words. The word sexual harassment didn't really exist in the sport domain at all. Where it first came to a head was when I was doing a piece of research in 1986, and one of the athletes I was interviewing, this would have been in 85, one of the athletes I was interviewing said that she'd been sexually abused from the time she was 13 until she was 18. And the reason she was retiring from sport was because going home to her small community meant either returning to the abuser or leaving the sport. So that's why she retired from sport. And that single interview became my life's work afterwards. It just resonated so much, that this young athlete had to put up with all of that stuff, and nobody knew. Nobody knew.
There's so many instances that, that we hear of after the fact of, whether it be predators or abusers that were kind of doing it right in front of people that, in a lot of ways maybe thought something was up or something was amiss, but just sort of went about their business and, somewhat as society almost having their heads in the sand. Yeah. Was there a turning point in your work that people started to maybe realize that this was a much bigger problem than maybe anyone had ever given it the conversation of?
Yeah, there was a fair amount of anecdotal material, a case here, a case there. And that happened whether I talked to my colleagues in England or Australia, it was the same thing. They all had anecdotes. And then I and Lorraine Greaves did a study here in Canada of our national team athletes. And it was supported by $26,500 from Sport Canada. We did a whole national survey on $26,500. And in it, those were the first statistics in the world at the national level on how much of what kind of abuse existed. And that was the turning point. We presented that at the Atlanta Olympic Congress in 96, and a country started then replicate that study, and other countries came up with prevalent studies of their own, and the numbers hold true. They're not exact in every country, but the kinds of things that we identified early are still the things that are there today. So.
Well, speaking of where things are today, I mean, obviously, Sport Manitoba, and I'd imagine, the Canadian governing bodies of sport all have safe sport programs. I mean, they really have come a long, long way. And you, of course, were a big trailblazer on this. How did those start? And at what point, I mean, did you find that, once one organization or so realized this was something to do? Because it really does seem like your work has transcended Manitoba and Canada and really has impacted the entire world.
It has. It's a global movement for sure. And when I said we started as just a handful of researchers, we were in different countries around the world. And so our first work was actually international. In Canada, the push came from that study that was released in 96, and also an awareness at the Sport Canada level that policies were needed, harassment policies were needed. That's what they called them, sexual harassment policies. Universities were getting them. Sport then began to get them as well. And I'm not aware of provincial level activity at that point. It was definitely pushed by the national levels, and it was pushed out through the NSOs. And then now, of course, it's around the world. In fact, I just had a call with a woman from Switzerland this morning who's working for one of the international federations and was asking about a case that they're managing there. So, the work that started from one little study and a handful of researchers has really just now everybody has education in safe sport. They all have policies, maybe up to here, but at least they have them. There are protections for kids. We need to know we're doing a better job in sport. Sport is a wonderful place and we have to really treasure it. And we really have to help the people in it be absolutely safe.
Dr. Sandra Kirby is our guest going into the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame. I mean, the accolades speak for themselves. A Canadian Sport Hall of Famer, the Order of Canada, and all of this is part of, a movement to protect athletes and include everybody. How, in your opinion, Dr. Kirby, where we are today in 2024, how far have we come? And I guess subsequent to that, how much work still needs to be done?
Well, obviously, we've come a long way. Have we come far enough? No, we haven't. We have barely begun to deal with things like athletes on the talent pathway, younger kids who are identified early and brought along. We have not very much research there and very few protections there. Everybody's aware that they need protection, but in terms of boots on the ground, there's very little there still. So that would be one big area for me. Another big area for me would be countries where this has not been dealt with. We're talking about the global north, if you will, being fairly well advanced in the area. But there are huge pockets around the world where safe sport has not even been mentioned yet. And so that's another area where we really have to shine the light and help them come to the forefront with their policies and programs so that their athletes are also safe. So those are two big areas for me in the future.
The work that you've done through Safe Sport has been pioneering and has helped protect athletes around the world. You've also been, involved in a movement of inclusion. Give us a little bit of a background. That's a word we hear a lot, but sport is it is so impactful in so many different ways. How did it come to be that this was something to make it available and to include everyone, regardless of where they come or how they live their life?
Well, at the base of this was always my interest in gender equity. And here I quote Dr. Guylaine Demers, who said, she just seemed to have anything, a little spidey feeling whenever anything inequitable showed up, and she felt compelled to have to do something about it. I have a very similar feeling. So all my work started with gender equity. And then out of that came an understanding of power imbalance and abuse and then harassment. So it all came from that root. So even now, I'm quite convinced that we can't do this work without everyone at the table. So it's no sense me sitting here in my office talking about athletes with disabilities. It has to be those athletes who are speaking for themselves about their own environments and about the things they need. And in that case, I'm a really avid listener because I can enable that to move forward, but I can't do it myself. It's not mine. And whether I'm talking about an athlete with a disability, or I'm talking about a coach who speaks a different language than the community in which they're embedded, or it's a newcomer to Canada who understands sport very well, but doesn't understand the Canadian context. All of those people are part of our sport environment, and they all are in the safe sport tent. They are all part of the conversation that helps keep the whole thing safe. So, there's not a doubt in my mind that equity is underneath. Equity, diversity, and inclusion underlie all of our work in safe sport.
Well, I guess in some ways people would think of it as two different things, but in ways, they're really all part of that same umbrella right now.
It's respecting each other. It's respecting each other's similarities and differences, and listening and helping and moving the thing forward. It's positive. It's always positive. We want sport to be a better and better place. We all have a role to play there. It's up to all of us to do it. So
I would imagine, especially, just thinking about Winnipeg and Canada as the demographics change and, new Canadians coming here, there is really an opportunity for sport to be something that brings everybody together and it is an incredible pathway for these people to kind of come in and really feel part of the great country that we have.
That's what Sport Manitoba says. That's exactly right. It's about sport for all. and it's up to us who've been in the trenches for a long time to keep those doors wide open. Not to make it exclusive and high level and so on. I'm obviously for high performance sport, but I'm obviously in support of everyone who wants to participate in sport in any way. So whatever that means, in my sport of rowing, that can mean someone who's visually impaired can get in a boat with somebody who sees quite well and have just a really positive sport experience. It's about the whole thing for me. It's about everybody in the tent thing.
Dr. Kirby, congratulations again on going into the hall. When an event like this happens, we look and talk about the incredible career that you've had and everything that you've done. But I would imagine that there was a lot of people that helped you succeed the way that you have. I mean, when you're going in on Thursday night, who are the people that you think of that helped you the most, tackle the challenges that you did and achieve what you've been able to do with the impact around the world?
The first person who comes to mind is Professor Celia Brackenridge from England. She was the grandmother of all of this. And she died in 2018. But a lot of the foundations that she laid are the ones that we rely on to this day. So she was my number one mentor in the safe sport area. As for Thursday night, of course, I want to thank Sport Manitoba, Janet McMahon, Suzanne Dagenet. I want to thank the Manitoba Sport Hall of Fame and the people there. I know how hard it is to make these decisions, to sit over all those files and to give it your all. And really, it's about thanking Manitoba for being a great place in which to have a sport career like mine. It really has been a fertile place for my research and for my sporting self.
Well, I mean, the Hall of Fame inductions are always so special. We've got an amazing class, and it's very clear that both as an athlete, but more so, as a trailblazer in safe sport and gender equity, that your legacy will live on for many, many years, and is helping athletes every day, and as we mentioned, hopefully bringing more people involved in under the sport umbrella and getting them active. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the program. Congratulations again, and all the best on Thursday night when you go into the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame.
Thank you, Andrew. It was a fun interview to do. Thank you.
I appreciate it. There's Dr. Sandra Kirby going into the hall as a part of It Takes a Community to Play with Sport Manitoba, brought to you by Manitoba Liquor and Lotteries. All right, that was a real pleasure catching up with Dr. Kirby. Appreciate her joining us. And, of course, congratulations to her and all the inductees in the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame festivities happening tonight. Listen, just before we get to the Coolbet lines, Remo, we've got to give a big shout-out to a great friend of WST, our guy, Aaron Cockrell. Cockrell is in the DP World Tour playoffs, which teed off in Abu Dhabi yesterday. 69, tied for 35th. But how about the fact that he dropped an ace in his first round, a hole-in-one in the tournament for Aaron. He's had an amazing season so far. And who knows, though that stroke or two could help him win some big money and advance in a tournament that could be very, very impactful to his golf career moving forward.
Yeah, he's just had an awesome season. We've had him on the show a couple times, and it's it just amazes me every day that someone from Toulon, Manitoba, can become a pro. I mean, we have snow on the ground.
It's
Like how many
story, man.
Like how much often can you golf here per year compared to anywhere around the world? So awesome to see him having so much success. He moved overseas with his family to take advantage of the opportunity. So wishing him all the best this weekend. A hole-in-one, pretty cool.
Listen, a hole-in-one at any point is amazing, but doing it in a tournament where the stakes are so high, even better. So anyways, good luck to Aaron in rounds 2 through 4 from everyone here at Winnipeg Sports Talk. All right, let's get to the Coolbet lines today. If you've missed it, by the way, for all of you cool bettors, if you are betting hockey, make sure you click on that promotions tab and get in on the Four Nations tournament. You can see it. All you got to do is just opt in. You just press a button there, and then whenever you bet $20, you'll get a raffle ticket to be in for the grand prize draw at the Lux Airfare Hotel, 2 nights in Boston, and tickets to the championship game of the Best on Best tournament. Cannot wait for this. And if any of you WSTers win, I am absolutely available to be your +1 on the trip. Get over to Coolbet for that. Let's check the lines for tonight. Oh, there you can see it on the screen if you're with us on YouTube right now. You fire that thing up, just click on opt in, and then you're good to go when you make your wagers. And maybe tonight you'll be wagering on the Winnipeg Jets, who are favored tonight at home against the Colorado Avalanche. Big slate of games tonight, highlighted by Winnipeg, -143 favorites against the Colorado Avalanche. Colorado +121. The Jets coming into tonight's game, I don't need to tell you all, folks, 12-1 on the season, looking to go 13-1. And then the Dallas Stars coming in on Saturday. Dallas is back for their first game since their trip to Finland. They're at home to the Blackhawks. Remis, I think the NHL did the Panthers and Stars a solid.
Panthers are playing someone easy too, aren't they?
Well, they're playing Nashville,
Yeah.
not necessarily as easy as Chicago, but there was only 6 teams that played in the league last night. Nashville lost to Washington. Chicago lost to Detroit. Both of them had to travel overnight and are playing on the second end of back-to-back. So, maybe that kind of evens up some of the jet lag or hangover that these guys will have from the Finland trip. Panthers -200, Stars -334, staying away from that. A big slate of games tonight. We've got a whole bunch. We did put together a partner parlay for the hockey tonight, Patty and I. We're taking the Ottawa Senators to beat the Islanders. We've got the Hurricanes in regulation against Pittsburgh, and the St. Louis Blues against Utah. St. Louis is actually a bit of a home dog in this game. Kind of like that number for St. Louis. They have 2 big wins at home going into tonight's game. And obviously we saw Utah having a little bit of a problem scoring goals as of late. That one is boosted all the way up to +530. And then if you go over to the exclusives, we've got a lock shot partner parlay for tonight's football game. Joe Burrow, 25+ completions. Mark Andrews, 4 receptions or more. And Deontay Johnson, 2 receptions. That's +325. But the main event is the WST parlay. And Remis, I'm rolling with the big boys tonight. We've got the Jets to win. Kyle Connor to get back on the score sheet. Scheifele and Morrissey both with a point at +440. I think to a man, every Winnipeg Jet is going to be really determined to have a great game tonight and try and get a win. And let's face it, you got to have your best players being your best players. Kyle Connor has been that all year. Connor Hellebuck has been all that all year. We've had a few nice wins with the WST parlay this year, so hopefully we can get another one tonight. Connor goal, Scheifele and Morrissey points, Jets to win, boosted up to +440. And, of course, the Bengals and Ravens are going at it on Thursday Night Football. Baltimore, a 6-point favorite. You got any lean on this game, Reem? I mean, if Cincy could somehow find a way to win, it would be so massive for them. They could get within 1 game of Baltimore and split the season series. Lose tonight, you're 3 games back. You're 4-6, and even making the playoffs might be a long shot.
Yeah, I think Cincy's in a tough spot here. Their defense, not great. Although Baltimore, I mean, they're allowing a lot of yards. And last time these 2 teams played, Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow went off. Unfortunately for the Bengals, it sounds like T. Higgins still out. And having him out, it really, it's another option for Joe Burrow. And, they're not as explosive without him. Another injury, too. Isaiah Likely out for Baltimore. I remember him, scoring 2 touchdowns against KC week 1. Yeah, that's why I do like your Andrews prop 4+. That's a big one there. So, some of the over totals, very exciting. The Andrews.
They put up 79 points when these teams played earlier this season. Baltimore won 41-38. And I will say this, once T. Higgins is confirmed out, assuming that he will be, you might want to take a look at Mike Gesicki. Gesicki had 5 catches for 100 yards last week and was a big-time target of Joe Burrow when he didn't have his number 2 guy in. I think before it was even money on over 4 catches for Gesicki. I actually jumped on that. So there's plenty of props there for it. But I know the focus of most of you is on this hockey game tonight. Jets minus 143. And you can jump on the WST parlay if you like in the exclusives with me. Jets to win, Kyle Connor goal, Scheifele and Morrissey to record a point tonight. I can't wait for this game. I know, everyone said, hey, listen, it's just game 14 of the regular season. It's just another one. It's always a treat to see some of the best players in the world. We're going to get to see that. Cale Makar, Nathan McKinnon, not to mention the team that's been the best in the NHL up until this point, Remo. And I tell you what, if the Jets can win this game, the vibes on WST tomorrow for a Friday, heading into Super Saturday with the Dallas Stars here and then the Riders and Bombers, going to be near all-time highs.
Yes, I don't think it'll be like winning a playoff game high, but 12-1. You still hear some people saying, "Oh, they haven't played a lot of playoff teams." So beating Colorado and not even exercising the demons, but maybe getting a little revenge from last year, showing that hey, you can beat this team because they might meet in the playoffs again this year. I think it would go a long way, and I think the Jets know they're a good team. They need to stick to their game, but they were kind of cooling it, saying, "Hey, this is just one of 82." I don't really believe that. They want to win. They want to show these guys they've learned from last year, and they're not going to let Colorado, pass it around, side to side, get Hellebuck out of position. They're not going to let him have all these easy zone entries, and the Jets are ready to show off their new power play as well. Special teams, huge factor in the playoffs. And the Jets, they have the best power play right now. Although Colorado, watch out for theirs, because they got the second best one.
Well, they do, and that's why PK unit, get ready for a big one tonight. And of course, a goal or two on the power play would be nice. Going to be a fun one tonight, 7:00. If you're down at the rink, I'll be up in 316. Say hi, and if not, make sure to get in your entry in our contest with Princess Auto. We'll announce the winner tomorrow on the program for tickets for the doubleheader of the year. We're going to put the win in Winnipeg with the Jets and the Bombers on Saturday and Princess Auto. Check out our Instagram or our Twitter or X. There's a post up there. We need you to send us a picture of yourself in Jets or Bomber gear. Both would be nice, or a few pictures if you want. Throw those in there. Hashtag Super Saturday. Tag us. We'll go through them all, and we'll announce a winner tomorrow on the program right before the marble race. So you got about 21 hours to get your entry in. Get creative if you want, and maybe you'll be hanging with me at the Jet game in some club seats at 2 p.m., and then got some fun lower bowl seats for the West Final, Bombers Riders. Oh, I cannot wait for Saturday. But hey, first things first, let's see what happens tonight at Canada Life Center. Tomorrow on the program, we are going to be all over it. Ed Tate sets up the West Final at Princess Auto Stadium. Murata Tesh will join us. We'll break down today's game between the Avalanche and look ahead to the Jets and Dallas Stars tomorrow. Hacksaw jumping on the program, and I'm hoping to have somebody for a quick segment from Winnipeg Transit to give us the lowdown in the 411 on the easiest, best, and fastest way to get from Canada Life Center to Princess Auto Stadium in time for kickoff. That's going to do it for us. Thanks to Dr. Sandra Kirby. Congratulations on her going into the Hall of Fame tonight. Justin Dunk, Scott Billeck, Brandon Rewucki, Remis getting us on and off the air and contributing to the program, and everybody in the chat. By the way, we're 2 subs away from 12K. So if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. Get the thumbs up. If not, we'll get it tomorrow. It'll be good vibes going into Super Saturday. That's going to do it for us. Enjoy the games tonight, everybody, and make sure to hang with us as we get ready for maybe the biggest day in sports all year in Manitoba on Saturday. Tomorrow, 1 p.m. for a big Friday edition, marble race as well, right here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Thanks to all of our sponsors and all of you for watching. See you tomorrow. Have a great one and get those entries in for the Super Saturday contest with Princess Auto.
Oh my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.